So Canada just defeated Honduras 6-0 in the first match at the CONCACAF 2025 Gold Cup. What does it mean? Well, we're getting into it because it's past my bedtime. Six 0 Canada winning. So guys, welcome to the channel. If you're new to this channel, you've never heard of this before, this is the African channel. We do primarily Canadian and African content, or African and Canadian content, depending on how you want to read it. So if you like this, make sure you leave us a like on this video. Let us know who stood out to you in these games. These are usually what we use for our match recaps. Also, subscribe if you like this type of content. Turn on the notifications so you know every time a video hits or a live goes down. So thanks guys for the support. We're trying to get 2025 by the end of 2025. I'd love to get to 5,000 by the end of the year, but let's take baby steps first. The first step is matching the year. And so, thank you for the support, thank you for the love, and let's get into this game. 6-0 for Canada. I mean, quite honestly, it wasn't that close. Canada winning their opening matchup in the 2025 Gold Cup with goals from Nico Seeger, Tenio Losey in the 45th +2, and Nico in the 27th minute, Tejan in the 48th and 65th minute, Dejan Buchanan, Promise David in the 75th minute, and Nathan Saliba in the 90th minute. The possession looks a lot closer, especially if you take a look at things like the Google map of this game. However, pretty generally speaking, Canada had a lot of the chances, had most of the chances. I think Google breakdown of the game says it really well. 19 shots for Canada versus 7 for Honduras. 8 on target, 4 on target for Canada and Honduras respectfully. And I think that's where one of the big things of this game I took. Yes, it was 6-0. Yes, a lot of Canadian fans were out there just really hoping they could run up the score to exercise some demons that they had back in 2012, it would have been. But Sunset, Pedro Sula, that 8-1 loss at the edge of the Ocho for World Cup qualifying. There's a lot that you love about this game. You love how Canada was always attacking. You loved how, to a degree, they were looking to be ruthless, but their touch at the end of the game, their touch at the final third, really let them down terribly. This game ends 6-0. It could easily have been 10. I dare I say even 11 or 12. If, a few cheeky spots, especially just shots put on frame. Jonathan David missed 2 shots right at the beginning of the game. Joel Waterman has a set piece coming from Mathieu Choignard, and he's not able to put that away. There's a contact to the upper area for Tenio Losey at the end of the first half, which isn't called. Kyler has a couple opportunities he misses. Promise David has a few opportunities that he fumbles around. So 6-0 is fine, but I think in saying that, that also brings up one of my concerns for this game. They weren't very clinical, and yes, against what people assume would be the toughest game in this group, I still think Curacao will give them a good run, just based on how their style is a little bit different. But you would have liked to see them a little bit more clinical. Yes, 6 goals is a lot, and how apropos for me to complain about a 6-0 win, but they could have been better. They honestly could have been better, especially in the final third. It seems harsh, but that's just the reality of it. Another interesting thing for me is Jonathan David, once he leaves, they don't have a player, a forward with his mind or his movement, that IQ, which begs the question, who's the best player to replicate Joe David, especially if you're going to give him a rest? Because Laren can be, but I don't think he doesn't have the movement that Joe David does, right? Promise could, but Promise is more of an out-and-out 9. This might be a space where I think maybe when you reach that level to want to give a player like Joe David rest, maybe it is an Ishmael Kone you try to put in that position. Because I think that might be the best thing now. There are some interesting things about the game that we haven't even got to. We haven't even done the lineups yet. I've reached the point where I'm just talking here. And so we need to really, we need some order here. Let's have some order here. So Canada, their lineup for the day was Dane St. Clair in the net with Richie Larea left, Joel Waterman center back, Luc Fougerel center back, Nico Seeger in the right back, Nathan Saliba, Mathieu Chouanière in the middle with Ali Ahmed and Tejan Buchanan as your midfield wingers, and then Jonathan David and Daniel Rousset were your nines. Now, a very interesting thing is that Matthew Shinetti did tweet out players who were missing, and I think there's a lot of things to keep in mind here. Alphonso Davies was at the game, but still recovering from his ACL, as was Sam Adekudbi, also recovering from his ACL. Moise Mobito out with a wrist injury. Derek Cornelius has a lower body injury from all that physicality against Cote d'Ivoire. Alistair Johnston is on a route with some hip problems, but coming back from his honeymoon, so congratulations to Mr. Johnson there. Kone arrived late after dealing with a personal matter in Montreal, and Eustachio's at the Club World Cup. So they had to rotate as much here, and we got to see what they could really look like. And I think that was the thing that I'm almost more so excited about. A little bit of a humor here. The refs were good. I'm someone who will always say, I'm not looking for the refs to be perfect. I just want them to be consistent. And one of the lines I would normally say would be, if I can mug a player in the second minute, I want to know that I can still mug a player in the 92nd minute. And I'll be, if this ref did not live by this creed. No cards, fouls aplenty, but the refs let them go. And I think this is more of a conversation with the entire tournament. It feels as if there's either a directive or the refs have all decided they're just going to let the players decide it on the pitch. There have been a lot of foulable offenses. They haven't been called universally. Not just this isn't a Canada's being done by the refs, or Honduras was beneficiary, or if you watch all the games, Jamaica versus Guatemala, there were fouls aplenty that just the refs let go. Saudi Arabia versus Haiti, same thing. And so there's a degree where in this tournament, players have to get into their mind. You can't keep looking for the fouls. You have to play through it. If the foul comes, the foul comes, but you have to play through it. And I think that'll be a good lesson, especially when they play Curacao next and then finish off with Honduras in their matchups. They're going to have to play through the adversity that's there, as well as play through the physicality that is present there. So yeah, you reach a game like this where you don't have much negative to talk about, right? You look at the SOFA scores for most players. Of the starters, everyone pretty much is over 7 on SOFA score if you use that. Only Luc de Fougerel had a 6.9, and I think there's moments where Canada goes up 3-0 and it seems like the defense kind of starts to doze off and they get caught on the counter. And you saw St. Clair trying to show and trying to get the defense and keep them engaged. Also, Dane St. Clair, great save off of a corner kick, keeping it a blank sheet for Canada. I think that's an interesting thing to talk about. Does Dane St. Clair do you just ride St. Clair for the rest of the tournament? I think maybe you give Max Crépeau a game. Maybe if after they win the second game, if they're able to do that, the third game, you give Crépeau the third goal game and see what he's able to do with it. I wonder what rotation looks like. That's also an interesting little nugget of factor that we could look at. If we look at the games and players played, Biello doesn't make substitutions till the 63rd minute, where he brings in Kamal Miller for Luc de Fougerel, who again was the only player who I think really struggled. Zoran Basong for Richie Larea, he was a player I felt struggled. Just in terms of getting his runs right. Also, you can kind of see with match fitness, there's only so much you can push from him. Jonathan David came out for Calais in the 63rd minute. We'll already talk about Joe David, so who's the best player to replace him. I think probably based off of the roster, a player like an Ishmael Kone could do it. That can give you a third player in the midfield who can move around and navigate, but also do some fun things on the ball. Tanny came in the 71st minute. Promise came in for Tanny, and then Jacob Schaffelberg came in for Tajon Buchanan. I wanted to see them just continue to be ruthless here. I think it's going to be important for them because they're going to face a team eventually in this tournament who will be stingy, and those missed chances will come back to bite them. So you want to see teams be this ruthless because you want them, when they lower their chances, know that you're not going to have 4 or 5 chances, 4 or 5 goes, 4 or 5 cracks at it. When you get an opportunity, you have to make it count. And I think that'll be great for them to learn, whoever they play coming up next. So let's talk about the groups here. Right now, Canada is at the head of their group with the 6 goal difference. They're sitting at the top there. Again, half the teams are undefeated. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a lie. Most of the teams are undefeated or won. Most have lost. Only 1 draw has come in. Curacao drawing El Salvador was early to 0-0. So for Canada, it's just continue to stack wins, stack results. If they get another win in the next game, I think they are more than guaranteed to move forward. And so I think that'll be very important for them to really keep an eye on and be ruthless there. And if Jesse Marsh or Morbiel decides to rotate, that group have to be ruthless as well. Curaçao's the next matchup, but El Salvador versus Honduras in Group B being the matchup as well. So for Canada, it's the opportunity to move forward and really continue to good form. I know people have said, and I think I'll echo it, they need to make the finals for this to be even considered a success, let alone being a success. They need to. They need to justify the play that they've had and kind of go from there. But let's take a look at some of the other groups and talk about kind of what we've seen there. I know this is what does it mean for Canada, but let's talk about what we've seen in the other groups. Costa Rica outlasts Suriname 4-3 and probably the most entertaining game of the tournament. To me, I think Suriname showed their level, and I think we're a little bit hard undone by not getting something out of the game. Mexico comfortably, but then had to see out the result versus Dominican Republic by a score of 3-2. I think it's important to keep an eye on those two matchups as well. Suriname versus Mexico was the second match. I think for Suriname to be alive, they need a historic result versus Mexico. We'll have to wait and see what kind of happens with that. And then Costa Rica versus Dominican Republic. Costa Rica, a win versus Dom Rep could guarantee them just straight passage to the next round and could kind of mess up some of the results. We talked a little bit about Canada in Group B. They defeated Honduras 6-0, and Curacao and El Salvador drew 0-0. Not many talking points in the game other than just the inconsistency with the teams. And I'm curious to see if El Salvador or Honduras can really bounce back, especially in a derby of that magnitude. Group C, Panama leads that group with a +3 goal difference, with Guatemala surprising some in second with a +1 goal difference, Jamaica with a -1 goal difference, and Guadeloupe with a -3 goal difference. Panama game past Guadeloupe comfortably, but the second half was a little bit more stressful. After they scored 4 goals, Guadeloupe started to work their way back in, and maybe we're one break away from possibly getting it down to 4-3. Unfortunately, Panama is able to get it past. I think Guatemala were able to just outpassion and outplay Jamaica, who just seemed to have got everything it felt wrong. We'll kind of have to wait and see how they react to it. Jamaica plays Guadeloupe next, while Guatemala plays Panama, so that second game of the day on the 20th will be a very fascinating game to watch. I think Group D, the US is just ruining the USA may be in trouble in soccer content, so thanks a lot, guys. But the US beats Trinidad 5-0. I think that was the most surprising result. I thought Trinidad would give more of a fight, either score a goal or be better defensively, and they were neither. It was hot knife through butter would be an insult to hot knives and butter. It just seemed that the US could do whatever they wanted, and Trinidad weren't defending well. And then Saudi Arabia gets a penalty and survives against Haiti. We just saw Haiti just unable to really get the ball past the line. and they were either offsides or they were and not scoring goals, or offsides but scoring goals, which were both very frustrating at the level. So we get to these next games. As we said, tomorrow we have Saudi Arabia and the US, and then also Trinidad versus Haiti. That's tomorrow's matchups. And then and then we have Jamaica versus Guadeloupe, and then Guatemala versus Panama on the Thursday this week. And then Saturday we have Curacao versus Canada, and then Honduras versus El Salvador. And what I presume is somewhere in between there, Costa Rica versus Dominican Republic, and Suriname versus Mexico. Guys, Canada wins big 6-0, but you let me know what impressed you. Who were your players of the match? I think for me, it's the midfield. Mathieu Choignard, I think, is doing a good job, and maybe we'll get into this a little bit here. I think players are all fighting. You saw TSN's thing, just the road to the roster. I think with my comments I made about Ismail Kone, I think a player like Mathieu Choignard allows your second midfielder to be able to play more defensively and not have to worry about so many defensive responsibilities. If it's Eustáquio and Kone, Eustáquio will usually take some of those defensive responsibilities. However, Mathieu Choignard can sit a little bit deeper, though he can advance the ball through dribbles. But with him sitting so deep, it allows the forward or the other midfielder to be able to really engage in the midfield and push further up. So I think Choignard, based off of all the players, I think Choignard to me did the most to really start to have questions in terms of who is the best partner for Stephen Eustáquio in the midfield. I'm curious to see what you guys think of something like that. But to me, Mathieu Choignard is my man of the match. Great set piece deliveries, was defensive when he had to, and got some great progress. Nico Seeker scores his first goal for Canada, as is Nathan Saliba. Happy to see it for the lads. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think. And as always, I'm gonna stop talking right here.